So we're going to continue the WSL chat from last night now, and delighted to welcome Gilly Flaherty, former WSL star, to the show as per usual. Gilly, good morning. How are things?
Good, thank you. How are you?
All good, all good. Thanks for hopping on as usual. We might start with the Arsenal match. We were just touching on it there before the ad break. Dominant performance, 4-0 win at Brighton, takes them back up to third in the WSL standings. An impressive performance overall. Kathleen here was mentioned Victoria Pelova, and her performance, particularly dropping into midfield when Leah Valti was ruled out through illness in the warm-up. A really impressive performance overall from Arsenal, and Pelova especially.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Arsenal dominated from minute one. Blackstenius should have had a hat-trick probably within the first 20 minutes. She was ruled offside when you're looking back at the replay. She wasn't offside. And then she had another chance with a header to get... She should have really had 4 goals in the first half. I mean, Arsenal were... they were just on it. They were hungry from minute one. Obviously, with Valti coming out in the warm-up, Jodie Taylor come in, we were sort of a bit like, what's he going to do? Is he going to drop Call or Pelova deeper with Marnham, which he done. Obviously Pelova sat in with Marnham, and I mean, I think she was brilliant there because she was able to get the ball from the defence and get the ball quickly up the pitch for Arsenal. But she's been such a star for him this year, being able to step in. Obviously there's been a lot of injuries at Arsenal when there's younger players that have come in or players that potentially might not have played a lot of minutes who have now stepped up and are playing really well. But for me, Arsenal were just the hungrier team from minute one last night.
Welcome return for Caitlin Ford from injury as well, which Jonas Eidevall will be pretty happy with that for those last 3 games of the season. It's a big boost.
Yeah, and I mean, it seemed like he didn't really want to make that substitution because obviously Gio come off. She was a sub that come on. She went in for a tackle and she come off with holding her hamstring. So I hope that's nothing too serious. But obviously then Caitlin Ford come on. There's obviously you got the game midweek next week, which will be a great chance for Caitlin Ford to get more minutes going into the Chelsea game on the weekend. So yeah, she's huge for him, and I think she has been a big loss because she likes to travel with the ball. She brings pace, she brings that experience. But again, you're looking at that the way they played last night. The players that come in, they've done a fantastic job.
Do you think it's fair to say, Gilly, that Arsenal probably outperformed themselves and beyond what most expectation would be of them, considering the lineups that they've had to put out due to injuries over the last couple of weeks? Even look at, say, City's performance at the weekend, and they've had a relatively settled bench and team for the last couple of weeks, and you wouldn't have expected that sort of performance, whereas Arsenal seemed to, I know they didn't get the win in the Champions League, but they fairly put up a fight when you consider the sort of players that were at their disposal.
Yeah, and I've always thought that Arsenal's weakness would have been their bench, really, because you're looking at the likes of Chelsea, that you take them, for example, their game against Everton, Sam Kerr gets injured and they're able to call Pernille Harder off the bench in the first 30 minutes. Like, she's an incredible player. You've got Erin Cuthbert on the bench, in that game that you're able to bring on. Those players are players that normally are starting. So Chelsea do have that, where I think Arsenal would have that if they hadn't had so many injuries as what they've had. So I'd say with Arsenal, what you're seeing really is the strength of the team, the togetherness. That's what's pulling them through, and players are stepping up. They talked about Jennifer Beattie, for example, who has been really mainly a squad player all season. Then due to obviously the injury to Leah has come in and comes in for a Champions League semi-final and plays extremely well. And you're seeing that obviously the last couple of games she's cramped up, but those players now those are the players that are starting, and they're taking it by the horn. They've been fantastic, and they've really showed their leadership qualities too, and stepped up when the teams needed it. But I feel like with Arsenal, they're just never say die attitude. Like, they just know how to win. And I thought last night's game might be a bit more difficult for them, how Brighton have been playing in the recent weeks, but they just showed their class last night.
And I guess it gives an opportunity to some younger players, as Kathleen mentions. Gilly, even last night, you see Freya Godfrey, a debut for her and a first WSL appearance of the season for Taya Goldie, both 18 years of age. So I guess all the injuries have been terrible for Arsenal this season, but then the flip side of it is all of a sudden you get appearances and minutes into the legs in the WSL for young players that otherwise wouldn't have got them.
Yeah, and that's what I say as well. When obviously with me, I got chucked into playing senior football quite young, but I was only really given my chance at Arsenal because I was 18 at the time, but every other centre back in front of me was injured. There was no one else possible that could play centre-back. So Vic Akers, my manager at the time, had no choice but to play me. I was the only one fit and available. And I mean, I was lucky enough that I was able then to secure my place and stayed in the team, really. But it is, I mean, injuries are there's a positive and a negative spin to injuries. Obviously, negative is you're losing the top players like Viv, you're losing Mead, Kim, Leah for such a long time. But the positive is without those injuries, could you potentially been seeing Marnham play the way she's played this year? Would you have seen Palova come in and play as many minutes as what she had? And especially the youngsters getting a chance off the bench, because if those players were fit, those youngsters might not even be making the bench in the first place. And the best way to get experience is by be given the opportunity to play. And when obviously you're 4-0 up at half time, you can then afford to make those changes and give players the opportunity.
The difference, Gilly, since you came in as a kid compared to the kids coming in now, what's the difference coaching wise in terms of like the ages that they started and like the technical coaching, I suppose, that they've had compared to your time?
Yeah, I mean, well, the youngsters now are going into a full-time environment. They're obviously going, whether it be the academies that have been set up, or they're going straight into getting a pro contract with the first team. They're in a full-time environment, so they're getting that exposure. Whereas with me, when I went to Arsenal when I was 15, I was only training 2 nights a week and playing on a Sunday. And it's mad to think then that we won the Champions League then, you know, being a semi-pro team. So, yeah, I mean, the exposure that's there for them is a lot higher. They get to work a lot more with coaches. And I mean, I know at my time at Liverpool and my time at West Ham especially, is that especially with the youngsters, there was real dedicated time. If a youngster said, I want to work on this or I want to work on that, coaches had things set up for them. And there was a lot more now of reviewing games and watching back training sessions and working on IDPs, so like your individual training plans. Or development programs, things like that, which we didn't have back then. So it's frightening now, I think, to see how far the game's going to go with players being able to get that opportunity. But yeah, they've got it all at their feet.
Have you got any regrets in that regard?
Well, I wish I was born now. Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful because I've been part of an era that had to work. And then I was blessed with the opportunity to be a professional footballer. So I feel like I've got that humble side of me that went from that and become the pro. And I'll always be grateful for that. And I had to work for everything. So, I mean, I love the fact that I got to do both. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see where the game will be in the next 5-10 years.
The other game last night, Gilly, was the Chelsea-Leicester match again, a bit of a pounding 6-0 victory for Chelsea. Emma Hayes spoke afterwards, used the word clinical a couple of times and said the team maybe haven't been as clinical as she would have liked at different points of this season. They were certainly clinical last night, 3 up after 32 minutes. So that moves them a point behind Manchester United at the top with a game in hand, Chelsea. So there's to lose the title at this juncture.
Yeah, and I mean, the main thing as well from the last 2 games with Everton and Leicester is before them 2 games, Man United had such a big goal difference on Chelsea, and because of those results, now their goal difference is the same. So it's like now they've completely shut that. So whereas before you could see if it went down to the wire, United would have dominated Chelsea on goal difference and they could have won the league on that. Chelsea have bridged that gap, which was obviously really difficult to do. And in my opinion, I thought, again, Leicester was going to make Chelsea a lot more difficult than what they did. But when Chelsea are in the form that they're in and they've got that hunger, they've got that ruthlessness, you don't really want to be the team that's standing in their way. I didn't get to really see much of the game last night because obviously I was covering the Arsenal game, but I watched the game, I covered the game on Sunday against Everton, and they had the 5 shots on target they had in the first half. They had 5 goals. Like, that's so rare to see in any game of football. And they were incredible. They were just ruthless and hungry, and I think it has cost them previous on in the season not having that. But again, you look at it like it's a Pernille Harder coming back. She brings so much to the team, and she's been out of the team since November, so she's been a big loss for them. But it just clicked at the right time for Chelsea. And for me, I can't see anyone else winning it but them.
I was going to ask you about Pernilla Harder because obviously she scored 3 goals in her last 2 games after coming back. Her first goals in 193 days. And then there was reports yesterday or the day before, just before they started playing, that she and Magda Eriksson might be off to Bayern Munich if they don't agree a contract with Chelsea this summer. How much of a loss would that be for Chelsea, considering that she's come back in and immediately started scoring? I was quite surprised when I saw Bayern Munich. I thought if they were going to go somewhere, it'd be somewhere different, but I know she has had a lot of good experiences in the Frauen Bundesliga before.
Yeah, I mean, she will be a huge loss because she offers so much. You can see her. I think she come on in the Champions League games, and I mean, you could tell she hadn't played. She didn't really get the ball, to be fair, coming up against Barcelona. She was just sort of chasing, and then obviously when you look at the game against Everton, obviously when she come on, her first touch was a goal, and it was such a classy finish too. But she brings so much, and obviously, yeah, it's linked to Bayern Munich. She's been linked to Lyon, Real Madrid, the pair of them. So I think they'll go. I don't think they'll stay. But, I mean, both of them, I think Magda Eriksson as well, I think she's been a fantastic captain for Chelsea. She's found it difficult as well because she was out the team. And, again, she's come in, and her and Mara Mielda have been fantastic at the back with the 2 injuries to Buchanan and Millie Bright. So, yeah, I think not just on the pitch, off the pitch, I think they bring a lot to the club. So they will be a huge loss if they do decide to go. But this is Chelsea. If they know that they're going to go, they're going to bring in 2 recruitments as well to replace them. It's just the way football goes. But, yeah, there'll be a huge loss to Chelsea.
Looking down the table a little bit, like the relegation battle has almost been as interesting as the title race, but just one that's kind of in the middle a little bit. West Ham haven't had a win in 9 games now, and there's been a bit of talk, when Rianne Skinner went through a similar sort of loss in form. She left at Spurs. There's been other managers this year who've had the same runs. They've all gone. Do you think Paul Konchesky's time is kind of running out, or will he be given the summer to rebuild and come back again in September?
I'm not sure, and I'm glad really that you've mentioned it, because I feel like West Ham have sort of gone under the radar because of other teams that are doing bad in and around them. I think if they didn't have the points on board already before, obviously since December, really since January, they've just had a really bad run and they've not really picked up many points, if any. Then if they hadn't put all them points on the board, then for me, they'd be in the relegation fight and I would struggle to see them come out of it. And it's difficult to watch because the West Ham that I know and that I played in, we were so hard to beat. We worked well defensively. But it's just a shadow of that team, like basic defending errors. There don't seem to be much confidence in the camp. So, yeah, if you're looking at it, obviously, Paul Konchesky's got worse stats than what Rianne Skinner has. And obviously, she lost her job. So you're looking at that. Should he really lose these? Should they make a change? I'm not too sure what the answer is down there, but I do know change needs to happen. Something needs to happen because from West Ham standards and when I was there, what we built, that's not the same West Ham team that we was a part of, I was a part of. So it's sad to see. And you've got really good players there. You've got really good girls. They're good human beings, and they deserve better. They deserve to play with confidence and to know that they're good players. You don't become a bad player overnight. So I hope that something changes down there and that they're able to push on and pick up results and points and go further up the table again and challenge.
Was there much fanfare about his appointment? Has this been a bit of a letdown?
No, I mean, obviously, Conch was my assistant last year, so I think he was a good number 2. I think he was a good assistant manager. He has been there before as a player. He knows what players want. He knows what players feel. So he understands that side of the game. I just don't know if he thought maybe that women's football was going to be a bit not easier, but obviously going in as a manager, I know he managed non-league in the men's side. I don't know if he thought it would be a bit more less stressful than maybe what it is. And the thing is with this league, it's a very tough league. Like it's in my opinion, it's the most competitive league in the world. So it is a difficult job to have, and one that if I didn't have grey hair, I would definitely have grey hair if I'd done that job. Like it is a stressful job, and there's with the exposure on it from Sky and BBC and all media outlets looking at it now. People's jobs are on the line if there's no results. You could say the same about Kelly Chambers. Like, is her job on the line really? Looking at how Reading are, will they potentially wait to see what happens at the end of the season and then make change? I think it's difficult now to say, well, yeah, if Konchesky goes now, who's going to come in for the last few games? Do you know what I mean? It might be a decision at the end of the season where they say, no, we're going to stick with you and we're going to give you the chance of the summer to rebuild, or they part ways and bring someone new in, because next season you can't have the same season as what you've had this year.
And Gilly, one final question for me, just in terms of Liverpool and that massive win that they had at the weekend. And they've come, kind of important in the title race in terms of the win they had against Chelsea at the start of the season as well, and the potential to, upset a few placements at the top of the table in the coming weeks. Where do you see them pushing on for the end of the season? And will Matt Beard be kind of happy with the season, or feel like there's still a lot left on the table for them?
I think with Beardy, he'll always strive to be better, and he'll always want Liverpool to be more. I do think if they're honest, their main target this year was to stay in the league, was to secure your safety. Obviously, you don't want to come up and be the team that goes back down again. If you're looking at their results, there's games that they've lost that they should have won, or that you're looking at not should have won in the sense of they played better on the day, but in regards to how they are, what players they've got. Like, you're looking at Leicester, for example, they've lost twice to Leicester this year. Once, well, the 4-0, I think they deserve to lose that game. But in regards to you looking at the teams and around you, the teams that you're aiming for to get 3 points off of, or you're targeting, Leicester would have been one of those teams where they said, we want to get 6 points against Leicester. It sort of sounds like the best of the rest, like obviously you've got the top 4, then the best of the rest underneath. I think like you're looking at the Villa home game. I mean, I played in that. We should never have lost that game. So again, you look at those areas that they would have felt that they'd dropped points where they could have been a lot higher. But I think if you're looking at it, be honest and say the main thing this year was just safety in the league, and securing your spot for next year, and then able to push on. But I think Liverpool have been fantastic. I think they had a really good game against Chelsea midweek. I thought they should have got a draw. And then obviously the Sunday's game, it could have been more goals as well. Watching it, Liverpool had more chances as well to put more goals on the board. But yeah, they were brilliant, and that's a huge win for the club. You're talking about the rivalry and that, to take 3 points off of City on your home ground. Like there's not much better, I think, aside from getting it against Everton and probably United. But again, you got United at the end of the season. Like, that's not going to be an easy game for United. And I think it's going to be a different game to what the away game was when it was 6-0. So yeah, I'm chuffed for Liverpool. I'm chuffed for the girls and Beardy.
Gilly, great stuff as always. Thanks a million for hopping on this morning.
No worries. See you later.
Great stuff. Gilly Flaherty there, the former WSL star.